Welcome to this video lecture on Bollywood Motifs, Cricket Fiction and Fictional Cricket by Chandrima Chakraborty. This essay is included in the paper Introduction to Cultural Studies prescribed for the fourth semester M.A. English students of the University of Kerala. So, cultural studies is an academic discipline that investigates or examines the ways in which culture creates and transforms individual experiences, everyday life, social relations, and power. It is basically an interdisciplinary approach that is used to analyze texts. This essay has been included in the last module of the paper, Cultural Praxis. What does praxis mean? Simply means the practical application of any branch of learning. So, praxis is the process of applying a theory. Marx has used the term praxis to refer to the free, universal, and creative activity through which man creates and changes his world and himself. So, coming to cultural praxis, it is a method that focuses on how society creates meaning and attaches it to everyday objects, ideas, and practices. So, cultural praxis applies cultural theories to study things. For example, we are going through a very difficult phase or a very different phase, which can be termed as corona culture or COVID culture for that matter. The essay Bollywood Motifs is an analysis of the structures of similarity between Bollywood, the film industry of India, and cricket, with special reference to the Hindi movie Lagaan. The author, Dr. Chandrima Chakraborty, is a professor at the Department of English and Cultural Studies. He is also the director, Center for Peace Studies at McMaster University, Canada. The author has published several essays on postcolonial theory, globalization, religion, Indian Caribbean writers and artists, and Bollywood cinema. This essay was first published in a journal, the International Journal of the History of Sport, and later it was included as a chapter in a book titled Sport in South Asian Society, Past and Present. You can also read the essay using the links that I have given here. I have also given another link to an essay by the same author, which is related to this essay. This essay is titled Subaltern Studies, Bollywood and Lagaan. So if you're interested, you can click on the links and read. Now, before we move on to the essay, let me give you a brief explanation of terms used in the text. You might be familiar with most of the terms, but then it will be good to have a kind of understanding so that it will be easier for you to uh, understand what is being discussed in the text. The first is the term Bollywood. I'm sure you don't need any elaborate explanation on that. It simply refers to the Bombay film industry. But what you have to remember is that India is the largest film producing nation in the world, and also the fact that the primary consumers of Bollywood cinema are the masses. Now, what is a motif? A motif is an idea, an object, or a concept that is repeated, and it is repeated in order to emphasize the theme of the narrative. For example, the motif of blood in Macbeth is used as a sign of guilt. Parallel cinema and commercial cinema. Again, these are two terms that you will be familiar with. Parallel cinema just refers to what you call art films. Uh, Directors like Satyajit Ray, Rinaldson, Adur Gopalakrishnan, all of them uh, are in this, are connoisseurs in this field. The commercial cinema is popular cinema, the film which is enjoyed by the masses, the film which the commercial cinema focuses primarily on entertainment. And it usually contains unrealistic plots, song and dance scenes, and so on. These are two terms that you find in the title: cricket fiction and fictional cricket. Cricket fiction just means any fiction, any narrative in which cricket also has a very important role. And fictional cricket, the fictional part of cricket, or the fictional characters, or the cricket players who are imagined and created by the author. For example, in the following movies, the pictures that I have posted here, 1983, it was a very popular movie. So in that movie, you have the hero, played by Niven Pauly, playing a character who is so passionate about the game cricket. So the game is the real game, but then the characters and the events are entirely the imaginative versions of the film director or the screenwriter. Similar is the case with another movie, Sachin, where Dhyan Srinivasan plays the role of a character who is an ardent fan of Sachin Tendulkar. High culture and popular culture, or also called mass culture. So, high culture, Raymond Williams, in his essay on high and popular culture, explains that high culture belongs to a higher social class or an elite group. Popular culture belongs to the rest of the people, and the rest of the people are usually referred to as the masses. Popular culture usually includes entertainment, film, music, TV, video games, sports, news, politics, fashion, technology, and so on. Marginalize. So, what do you mean by marginalize? Marginalize means to place someone or something at the margins, to remove someone from the center and place at the margin. So, marginalize means to make a person feel isolated, inferior, and unimportant. It usually refers to a group of people belonging to the lower classes, the migrants, the unemployed, the peasants, and so on. Subaltern studies is a study of marginalized or oppressed people, people who are excluded from the main society. Subaltern studies as an academic discipline was pioneered by Renajit Guha, and the term subaltern stands for anyone who is subordinated in terms of class, caste, age, gender, or in any other. What do you mean by agency? The weaker sections in society depend on a stronger group or a stronger representative who can voice their issues to the dominant power structures. For example, the subalterns needed someone to voice their opinions, someone to make their voices heard. Subaltern studies becomes an agency for the subalterns. An agency simply means the capacity of individuals to act independently and to make their own free choices. Another term you come across is historiography. Historiography simply means a critical study of history. Historiography helps us to understand why history has been interpreted only from an elite or a dominant perspective. You must have heard of Dalit historiography, which is an attempt to include Dalits also in the main history. Colonial and post colonial, I'm sure you don't need any explanation for these terms. Other, you must have come across this term in post colonial criticism. So, other means of a foreign origin, someone who's different. So, the colonizer regarded the colonized as inferior and as the exotic other. For example, when we were ruled by the British, the white people regarded the brown skinned Indians or the darker skinned Indians as inferior because of their race, because of their caste, and they considered them as, uncultured people, uncivilized people, and so on. So, other is a term that you come across in post-colonial criticism. Decolonize. Decolonize literally means a nation that is, broken free from colonization, a nation that has become politically independent after colonization. But it also means liberating the mind from colonial influences. You must have heard about decolonizing the mind. Now, destabilize is another word which means to, cause to lose power or control at the center. For example, when post-colonial countries like India started playing cricket, which was originally a colonial game, the concept of cricket being, a part of elite culture, this idea was destabilized. Now we come to the last few terms: indigenous and indigenization. Indigenous just means native or local, and indigenization is the process of making something more native in order to suit a local culture. For example, if you look at the picture, you will find it shows an advertisement by of Kentucky Fried Chicken. You can find two versions of the chicken there. On the left side, you find the typical American um, type of chicken, and on the right side, you find that uh, that is a more spice. It is more spicy and it is more suited to the Indian taste. So the smoky grilled chicken would be an example of indigenization, where the chicken has been modified into something more palatable to suit the Indian taste. And the last term is vernacularization. What is vernacularization? Vernacular just means native language or the mother tongue, and vernacularization is a process of restoring and developing an indigenous language into an official language. A simple example would be, in English is considered the official language in India, but of late you find that many governments have switched over to the vernacular, to the local language or to the mother tongue as the official language. This is the layout of the essay. It has an introduction and three sections, and I will read what the author has given at the beginning of the essay, and then I will explain. So, the first section, according to the author, is I start by exploring Lagan's similarity with the Subaltern Studies project in recuperating the subjectivity and agency of the subaltern classes. Recuperate simply means to recover. So, the author has tried to analyze how Lagan, the movie, uh, has a lot of similarities with the Subaltern Studies project uh, in recovering the agency of the subaltern classes. The second section deals with the film's interrogation of cricket, which was considered one of the key civilizing devices of the British Empire. So, interrogation here just means an exploration or an examination. Cricket during the colonial period was considered as high culture. It was a game played only by the British. So, this aspect is, or the history of cricket is analyzed in the second section. Cricket's transformation from a colonialist device to a nationalist game in various post colonial nations is discussed in the final section. So these are the three sections. To put it in a very simple way, uh, the first section would be Lagan's similarity with the Subaltern Studies project. The second, how Lagan interrogates cricket. The third, how cricket is transformed to a national game or a nationalist game, especially in post-colonial countries. Now we come to the introduction of the essay. So the author begins the essay by talking about Bollywood cinema, talking about cricket, or the importance of cricket in a country like India. So Bollywood is generally considered as popular culture with all its connotations of trivial, inferior, and low culture, mainly because it caters to the masses. It serves only as a form of entertainment. It doesn't really address any kind of socio-political issues or so on. But now things have changed. You have Bollywood emerging as a site of uh, serious discourse. And intellectuals, urban elites, they usually prefer art or parallel cinema because it is marked as high culture. But you find that Bollywood is an industry which is preferred by the masses. Now, when it comes to cricket, here you find that cricket is a game liked by both high and low culture. It is not considered high culture, it is not considered low culture. It is liked by both the elite and the masses. And also, cricket is considered as a national game. Officially, it is not the national game, but it is in the mind of the Indians. Cricket is almost like the national game, and in the Indian cricket team has also gained international acclaim. So it has put India, or it has made India visible to the world. So cricket is very popular in India, and there are no distinctions in caste or class when it comes to being a fan of cricket. The author points out a few similarities between cricket and Bollywood. The main similarity that she mentions is that both are the only affordable forms of entertainment in which the subordinate and the marginalized peoples, that is, the masses, can be both active consumers and engaged spectators. So, this is the main similarity that she points out. I'm sure you understand. Uh, so even if you can't go to a stadium and watch a cricket match, uh, you can watch it on television. So in that way, almost the entire nation participates in a game of cricket. They are active and they are engaged. Same is the case with Bollywood. The film industry uh, thrives in India mainly because of the masses. Now, other similarities are audience response and celebrity status enjoyed by the film stars and the cricketers. Now, for example, if you look at an advertisement, you will find uh, that it is mostly cricketers or film stars who endorse products. And when it comes to inaugurating a shopping mall or inaugurating anything or an event of importance, you find that usually cricket players, or film stars will be the chief guest. And they are also used by political parties during the elections because of their fan following, because of their appeal to the masses. And some of them have also become members of political parties, and they have won elections, become ministers, and so on. So they enjoy a celebrity status in a country like India. An audience response is how the audience responds to, for instance, a match played between India and Pakistan. If the Indian team fails, you can imagine uh, how the crowd will react. And on the other hand, if the Indian team wins, again, you can imagine the jubilant nature of the crowd. So, similarly, when it comes to movies, for example, if you watch the movie Mohanlal, you will find the character played by Manju Warrior, how she reacts in the cinema theater when Mohanlal, her favorite hero, appears on the screen. So this is what she means by audience response and celebrity status. I have given two pictures here. So Pepsi, the product is has two celebrities here in the picture. One is a cricket player, and the other is a Bollywood film star. So these are the similarities that Chandrima Chakraborty finds between cricket and Bollywood. Now, this point is very important. Bollywood has become a site for public discourse, and it is not just pure entertainment nowadays. You find most movies, even in Malayalam, you find this change. So, most movies represent some issue, some national event, some social issue, but in a manner that is appealing to the masses. Like I have given a few examples of how Bollywood has become a site for public discourse. Two of those movies deal with issues of gender violence, and Yuri, the surgical strike. It is actually based on real events. It narrates the events of the surgical strike conducted by the Indian Army against Pakistan terrorists. So, the close association of film stars and cricketers in the public imagination and the appeal that cricket holds for the Indians is evident from the huge commercial success of the 2001 Bollywood blockbuster Lagaan. Lagaan is the Hindi word for tax. And the author says that it was only because of a successful combination of both film and cricket. It was also the official entry to the Oscars that year. And this observation validates C.L.R. James' view that cricket is first and foremost a dramatic spectacle. It belongs with the theatre, ballet, opera, and the dance. So, cricket is not just a game for most people, it is a higher form of art, like the theatre, like the ballet. So, Ashish Nandi, another critic, has commented that in the Indian popular culture of entertainment, cricket as spectacle is closer to film as spectacle than to cricket as sport. So, cricket is not just a game, not just a sport, it is almost like a film, a popular mode of entertainment, and it is closer to film as spectacle than to cricket as sport. So, this is the movie that the author has selected. Now, before moving on to the different sections, the author gives a brief overview of the plot of Lagan. The film is set in 1893 in a village called Champener in central India. That year, there was very little rainfall as in the previous years. So the peasants, burdened by the taxes, heavy taxes imposed by the East India Company, decide to meet their king, the Raja, and to request for a tax waiver. So when they approach the king, they find him watching a match, a cricket match played by the British captain, Captain Russell, and his officers. Now, you should remember that it is the colonial period, so the Raja is only a nominal head. The main decisions are taken by the East India Company. Now, while they are watching the match, they are asked by the king to wait until the match is over because it is something very important. So, what they do is what the villagers do is uh, they watch the game from the margins, but they watch it with wonder, with surprise because they are watching it for the first time. And Bhuvan, the character played by Amir Khan, protagonist or the hero of the film, he explains to the villagers that the British are playing a silly game, and he even gives it a local name, Gilli Danda, a game that is played by the village children. The villagers are highly amused because they think that a children's game, the British are playing a children's game. So to find adult men indulging in an immature behavior, now this makes them laugh and they crack jokes and so on. So after the match, they meet the king, but he expresses his helplessness. At this point, Captain Russell intervenes. Now, he has observed how the villagers have made fun of the cricket match. So he is really angry and he feels that the game cricket was ridiculed by Bhuvan. So he challenges the villagers to beat his team in a cricket match. If they win, they don't have to pay Lagan for 3 years. Now, the helpless villagers have no other choice, so they accept the challenge. But then the ending is a typical ending that you can find in Bollywood movies. It's very predictable. Naturally, the Champiner village cricket team in spite of all its you know limitations, they defeat the British team in a climactic finish. So this is just a brief overview of the story of Lagan. We come to section 1, Lagan's similarity with the Subaltern Studies project. Now, the cricketers of the village or the village cricket team is composed of a subaltern group. And here you have Bhuvan, their leader, or somebody who dares to take the initiative to form the village cricket team. And you find the villagers who were confined to the margins coming to the foreground. So this is possible only in a medium like Bollywood. Bollywood films, because of their appeal to the masses, to the subaltern audience, can effectively decolonize the imagination of the Indian masses. Now, another point that she makes is Lagan reveals the potential of a Bollywood movie to empower the masses. So here you find that the subaltern group, the village cricketers, finally when they win the match, they feel empowered. And this is a great thing for them because otherwise this group was silenced, forgotten, or marginalized in dominant discourses. The film also appeals to the peasant spectators, especially in North India, as the main characters are peasants in a drought affected village in colonial India named Champaner. At the end of Lagan, a male narrator mentions that the film has tried to recover the distinctive historical practice of a subaltern group that was lost or hidden by the process of elite historiography. So the film questions the authenticity of official versions of Indian national history. Now, Lagan merely repeats a Bollywood motif, a popular Bollywood motif, which is the defeat of British colonizers at the hands of colonized Indians. If you take a look at some of the Bollywood movies where you have uh, the Englishmen or the English people as characters, you will find that mostly they are represented as villains. And the Indians will always be uh, will always have a higher hand, and they will always be given more prominence. That is a popular Bollywood motif that Lagan also uses. And a unique feature is that cricket is portrayed as an exclusively elite colonial sport. So in the movie, we find that the villagers are watching cricket for the first time. So it means that cricket was played only by the British. Cricket was essentially a colonial game, a civilizing device. So Lagan therefore defies history, writes the dispossessed of the colonial margins, the non literate and the poor peasants, into the history of a popular elite sport. The film resists colonialist misrepresentations of native societies by foregrounding the native agency. So, the native agency here is the village cricket. The village cricket team is foregrounded, and by winning the match, the film questions the authenticity of the official versions or the historical versions of Indian history. So, this is similar to the Subaltern Studies Project's efforts to transform the writing of colonial Indian history. Now, the author has identified several layers of otherness in the movie. If you look at the village or the characters in the village, there is definitely a hierarchy of social relations. The other that defines the subaltern's self consciousness includes several or different others. For example, at the topmost the topmost section or the layer is the Raja, the feudal lord. He is also another in comparison with the colonial or the British. So the Raja, then after the Raja comes the bourgeoisie, the middle class, then the marginalized groups, lower or outside the caste hierarchy, like the untouchables. There is a character named Kachra who is included in the village cricket team. He is an untouchable. Normally, he wouldn't be allowed. He wouldn't even be allowed inside the village, but because he proves his capability to be an exceptional bowler, he has exceptional bowling talent. So, Bhuvan appeals to the villagers to include Kachra also into the in the cricket team. The subordinate and the discriminated, the disabled or the mentally ill. The character that I just mentioned, Kachda, is doubly marginalized because first he is an untouchable and second he is also a disabled person. And the other gender that includes women and children. So these are the different layers of otherness that you see in the movie. So, simply put, this is a critical opinion. Lagan is a film that celebrates the Calibans of India. You must be familiar with Shakespeare's last play, The Tempest. Caliban is a character in The Tempest, and if you look at post colonial analysis or critiques of The Tempest, you will find how Prospero, the main character, is the colonizer and Caliban is the colonized. So that is why the word Caliban has been used, as a kind of a representative of the subaltern. So Lagan is a film that celebrates the Calibans of India. So through Lagan's representation of the peasants participating in an elite colonial game, the villagers actually become active historical agents instead of being passive victims of colonial domination. Now we move on to the second section where the author tries to analyze how Lagan has explored cricket or Lagan's interrogation of cricket. So, the author analyzes the historiography of cricket in the film by vernacularizing the game. If you remember, Bhuvan has um, compared the game of cricket with a very silly, immature, childish game that the village children play. So he uses the term Gilli Danda. So the film asserts that Gilli Danda is an indigenous version of cricket. Thus, colonial cricket is stripped off of its glamour and of its purity. So the game is dismissed as a children's game, and here you find a reversal of the terms and tropes of colonialist discourse. The film successfully decenters the British subject and foregrounds the colonized natives. So the British are decentered or destabilized. Their position at the center has been destabilized or toppled over, and the colonized natives, the subaltern villagers, move to the front. The film has a 1.5 hour long cricket match. I think this is very rare in a movie. So, what that match serves to show is how the differences in skin color, attire, the villagers don't have a kind of, the uniform or the cricket paraphernalia. So, they just wear the what they usually wear. So, the attire is different. Batting, bowling, fielding techniques, everything is different. So it becomes an expression. The cricket match that is portrayed in the movie becomes an expression of racial and cultural difference. So the vernacularization and indigenization of colonial cricket hijacks cricket from the monolithic structures of Englishness. So this is what the author has analyzed in the second section, how she kind of destabilizes cricket as a colonial device and makes it into a local version. Now, the last section, Chandrima Chakraborty analyzes the transformation of cricket from a colonialist device to a nationalist game in various post colonial nations. So, the victory of Lagan's fictional cricketers transforms cricket. It brings about a transformation, a huge transformation. So, cricket is transformed from being a British civilizing device to a national sport. So, cricket for the British was a trope of modernity, and so the film challenges narratives of modernity and history. So, Lagan de-centers colonial cricket from the subaltern perspective, and the socio-historical interrogation of cricket in Lagan, with its appeal to the masses, itself becomes an act of critical intervention. The movie Lagan demonstrates how Bollywood can, perhaps consciously or unconsciously, enable the post colonized subjects of India to participate in debates on colonialism, subalternity, and modernity. Lagan also legitimizes the presence of the others. The others who were confined to the margins have been foregrounded by the creation of the cricket team, the village cricket team, and thereby of the Indian nation. So the small group of peasants, the village cricket team actually stands for the whole of India. The film represents presents an alternative view of subaltern history or cricket history through an anachronistic representation of colonial cricket in the margins of the empire. It also emphasizes the existence of popular cinema or popular culture as a site on which issues of history and modernity can be re-articulated and rewritten. To conclude, the essay is about subaltern classes, about modern devices like cricket and cinema, which, depending on the socio historical context, can enable or disable the subaltern's entrance into history. Now, the core of the argument is one, the subaltern's destabilizing of the history of colonial cricket, two, the agency of the subaltern classes. Now, this is a unique characteristic feature because here you don't have an external agency who represents the subaltern classes. The village cricket team is on its own. They have a leader in the form of Bhuvan, but then Bhuvan is also one among them. He is not somebody outside the village. And the subversion of the civilizing mission of the British imperial enterprise through the Bollywood film Lagan's representation of cricket in colonial India. These are some of the references that I have made use of. You can also take a look at these if you want to. So thank you for your patient listening. I hope this video lecture was useful to you. Stay safe and goodbye.